All right. So with all that out of the way, there was a take that I had that I mean, it's like an impossible question. The question is,
What's up?
the greatest finisher of all time. It's impossible to really get an objective. Everyone can definitely say this is the greatest finisher of all time because there's all right. Is it the greatest because it looks like it hurts the most? Because it's the most real? Because it's the most iconic? There's a lot of different reasons why you could say a move is the greatest of all time. And
Yeah.
up on that list for me, before I get to the one I'm going to say, is the Tombstone Pile Driver. It is definitely up there as one of the greatest moves of all time, one of the greatest
Interesting.
finishers of all time, and the Stunner. Those round out the top three for me. But something I've been thinking a lot about in the last couple weeks, and that I wanted to talk to you about on the podcast, for me, and it's a really hot take, and that's kind of why I'm taking it too. It's the RKO. And I've been sitting on this for weeks as to if this is something I really, really want to back. And I've talked about it with a few other people, and no one has said anything enough to me to kind of move away from that position. Like,
To
and
prove you
and
otherwise.
you're going to okay. Well, let me explain to you first why
Yeah.
the RKO. It is one when you at this point in WWE, when you think of a diamond cutter, you think of two people of old school DDP, new school Randy Orton. But the first person you think of is Randy Orton. Because as
Hmm.
classic as DDPs might be, I mean, Randy took it to a whole other level. And it is it's one of those moves that one, it always looks good. It always looks crisp. Um, depending on who you're doing it on. I mean, if you're doing it on May Young or someone that's not a wrestler, yeah, it's not going to look great. But on wrestlers, always looks great. And the from out of nowhere, what became a very popular meme, that aspect
Hmm.
of it is what kind of propels it a little more. Because there are so many finishers in the history of wrestling that you have to
Hmm.
have some kind of setup. And the
Hmm.
RKO is one of the most iconic, and of the iconic finishers, it's the one that you need the least amount of setup for, more than any other one that I can think of, besides maybe the stunner. And even the stunner, you got to give them a kick. You got to lead them into it. And the RKO is from out of nowhere. Now, the kick from the stunner, it was great because as soon as that kick is hit from Stone Cold, the crowd's already popping because they know what's going to
Yeah.
happen. So it was cool. That was a cool little aspect. So I get that kind of build. But the RKO, I mean, the pop came from it being hit because you had no idea where it was going to come. It fit in absolutely perfectly with who Randy Orton was, and the from out of nowhere and the Viper character, like it all blended and tied in so well. And on
Yeah.
all the check marks that you're going to have for a finisher, timeliness, does it look like it hurt? How iconic is it? Like, who is it attached to? All those things. Is it like particular to one person? Because you could say things like the spear, or even like sure the attitude adjustment, which is really just a fireman's carry. Like, but so many
Hmm.
people have that move or a variation of that move. Not a lot of people have as great or just any kind of diamond cutter like the RKO is. It just is so high on the list for all of those different checklists that you're gonna have for a finisher, and that's why I choose the RKO. Your rebuttal.
Yeah. I mean, so I do agree with you. The RKO is the best finisher, and here's why. Initially, I was gonna say the spear, but then I started thinking Goldberg hits it. He has his own variation. Edge hits it, his own variation. Roman hits it. I've seen Charlotte hit it.
Rhino.
I've seen Big Rhino with the gore. Charlotte hits it. And it's not even a finish. It's just her throwing it in there.
Yeah.
To me, I like something that can be thrown out of nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
But right now, the only thing that's original, kind of original, is the RKO. Um, I have seen a variation of the RKO from Austin Theory, and his version is basically from a fireman's carry to the RKO. That's the only other variation I see of it, but it's still the RKO. So I do agree with you. The best finisher is the RKO, mainly because only Randy hits it. Like we see the super kick, another move that I love. Who hasn't thrown a super kick? I've seen Adam Cole,
Ziggler.
um, Ziggler, Rollins. I'll throw it out. I think even Rey Mysterio threw one out. Like everybody's been throwing out super kicks, and like Uso's been throwing it out. Like I do love their finish too, like the double super kick. I think that's dope. But I've seen it already. The Young Bucks throw it out, and yeah, RKO all the way.
I mean, the RKO, it is it is one of the best moves of all time. It'll be
Yeah.
always celebrated as one of those top finishers. But I
Hmm.
feel like I felt like I feel like it's a hot take. Like not a lot of people are thinking when they think of greatest of all time, they're not thinking of the RKO. They might be thinking of, like I said, the Tombstone, or maybe the choke slam, or Goldberg spear, maybe even something like
Yeah.
Sweet Chin Music, Batista Bomb, 619. There's so many finishers out there, but just like I said, and checking off all those boxes, for me, that was just enough for the RKO to be the greatest finisher there ever was.
Yeah, the arc. I mean, like I said, the RKO's original. Like, not really. There's only been like one variation of the RKO, which is Austin Theory's um uh Chaos Theory, I think it's called. The super kick itself, everybody throws it out. Ziggler throws it, Adam Cole, like
Yep.
multiple. There's numerous people that throw it out. Same with the tombstone. It's basically just a power driver. Like we've seen Kevin Owens throw a butterfly power driver or a suplex power driver. Um, how many old school power drivers have you seen from like King, Tori
Mick
Fun,
Foley.
Mick Foley? Like you've seen a power driver before. It's
Yep.
nothing unoriginal. You know what I mean? Like
The
anything
tombstone, the
unique.
tombstone is iconic, a lot of it because of who's delivering it. It's the
That too,
Undertaker's move. Like when you think of the tombstone itself, one, sometimes it's not the easiest to set up. And there's been botches in those setups that we've seen that have been very
of
famous
course.
botches. And I mean, just it's not. I don't believe that Undertaker is taking this guy and thrusting him headfirst onto the ground.
Yeah. Um. Yeah. I mean, the tombstone, and he's landing on his knees, bro.
Yep.
So, I don't know. To me, the tombstone. The reason I'm not considering it as a top move is we take it takes a lot to build it. We're talking about the whole and then picking them up, putting them over your shoulder, and then hitting them arms around and cover. You know
And the part between putting him on your shoulder, like getting him is completely centered and doing it
exactly.
correctly.
And I don't know. To me, like I said, it's too much of a build for it. If I had to compare it, I'd have to compare it to Kenny Omega's finish. Kenny Omega's finish is just way too long for such a simple move, to be
Yep.
honest.
Yep.
And that's why I like the RKO. It's not much of a build. It's just boom, 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 RKO, and that's it. Or I don't know where to. And super kick, the reason it's out of the conversation is because everybody does it.
Yep.
And I can't think of any other finisher that could possibly come into play at this moment. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like the Batista bomb, it's basically a power bomb that everybody does.
Yep. I agree with that as well.
Oh,
All right.
I do know. I my bad. I do know one move that will come into this conversation though. Daniel, I know you love this move. The people's elbow is the greatest finish of all time.
You're lying.
Daniel.
I already know you're lying. Stop it. I mean, you can't play me like that for the main reason that we've talked about this, Luis. We've talked about how lame of a move the freaking people's elbow is, man.
Daniel. It won titles.
And it's The Rock doing a couple laps and then just dropping his elbow on you. Like
It just showed you how athletic he was.
it got a major pop. Like it worked for him. I'm not going to say that it didn't. I'm not going to say that it wasn't iconic in some way. But when you really break it down as to what it was kind of lame. But it worked. It worked. As lame as it was, it worked. Just like I said, the attitude adjustment is just a fireman's carry. Like it's kind of lame, but if it works for those guys and those guys are all time greats, more power to them.
I'm just ribbing you for all
Yeah,
my wrestling fans out
yeah.
there.